Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn, and on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business and share them with us so we can learn from them as well. And as always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, I'm excited to have Brian Gorman. He is the owner of Gadal Strategies, providing profit and growth strategies for business owners with annual revenues between $400,000 and $5 million. So, Brian, it's great to have you on the show. And I want to start off with a question that I always love to start off with, which is this. If you were able to start all over again in your business, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 12 months?
Man, I love that question because it's the question I kind of have to answer with almost every company that we work with is because going back to it. And for me, it's always, I've learned to follow my own advice. Uh, we've got a pretty specific process that we know works. And yet there, every once in a while you think you're smarter than the algorithm, like everybody thinks they're special and somehow they know some super secret. If I do it this way, like, why don't you run the model first? And see if it actually works. I would have followed my own advice along the way, followed my own process. I think it would have saved me a lot of headaches, especially when I think back sort of to my past life, so to speak. Before I did this, I was a preacher. I was a minister for 25 years, and I sit there and go, if I would have followed this advice then, that could have saved a whole lot of challenges along the way too. But yeah, that's the one I think about a lot. It was like, man, I should have done it this way.
Yeah. Is there any specific things that you would do differently? Like, is one or two little things that you would pull out and go, I would definitely do that different?
Yeah, here's what happens a lot of times is businesses tend to lack a foundation, right? I knew what I was about, who I fixed, what I was doing, all of that, but they forget the next step is to generate leads, right? You got to have people who are interested, know how to do it. You need a process to do that. Most businesses, though, move to product. They want to make sure that the product is really great. I remember working with another coach consultant a while back, and he'd built his company and started, and then decided to start on his book. And I'm like, but like that's you don't have anybody that's interested in what you're doing yet. You're spending a year writing this. Like that's time lost. I would have focused more on creating a
Mm.
definitive, non-referral dependent lead generation model. Not that you don't want referrals, but referrals are they can be inconsistent. It's hard to track what was and was not working. So, and you want referrals. It's just non-referral dependent lead generation system. That would have been the key thing I would have focused on second rather than better and better products.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think it's great advice and something that I see all the time happening as well, where people are, they jump onto the next thing. It's like, well, build that up first. It's like get that going. Yeah, absolutely. As part of that, the whole thing around what you're saying, building up that process and system. What's been the hardest part of growing and scaling your business without being salesy or spammy in what you do?
I think the hardest challenge is that entrepreneurs, especially your smaller sort of that micro smaller business entrepreneur, that 400,000 to 5 million bracket. Um, they did it because they wanted to sort of own their own thing, right? There is a pride that comes with it, and the problem with pride is it can often lead to hubris as well, um, pride that hurts others, and so as a result of it, there's that I don't know, Munchausian pull myself up from my bootstraps mindset that says, I've got it figured out. I've got it figured out. I got it figured out. I got us to here. You did, and that's awesome. But getting you from here to there is not the same thing. It's a different set of processes you need in
Mhm.
place. And so because of it, if I'm being extremely forthright about it, there's an arrogance and a hubris that goes within the world of entrepreneurs where we hate to say that we didn't do it. One of the people that I worked with a while back. I was sitting there with him. Someone had pointed out how amazing it was that his company had grown at the rate it had, that it had nearly doubled in the last year, and what was going on. And we asked him how he did it. Again, I'm standing here with him, and he goes, "Oh, well, it's because I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this." And I'm sitting there thinking, little something, right? And, and then it was really kind of a little frustrating to me. And so I found that one of the great struggles is when you have that, you've got to be able to communicate to that entrepreneur who has that great bit of confidence and strength in what they do, a belief in what they do, be able to point out the parts they don't know, but in a way that doesn't make them feel dumb, stupid, belittled, less than. So I found that to be probably the one of the biggest challenges in it.
That's a great answer. I think it's a challenge, isn't it? You being able to cut through um, the pride of it. And thing is, like most entrepreneurs, business owners, there isn't an element of that because it's hard graft. You've had to really forge a way through, and but being able to communicate to people in that manner to let them know here's what we can do. And of course, it
Yeah,
comes down to the owner as well, doesn't it? Because if they're not
it
open to listen, doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah, I tend to find owners tend to focus on one of three things. There are fear-focused owners, like they risk their entire career and family in order to start this company, and now they can't, they're so afraid they're going to mess it up. You've got those pride ego focused, right? They're sitting there going, I've got to prove I'm right. I'm smarter than the algorithm kind
Mm,
of person. And then you have growth and success focused. And growth and success focused go, I don't care where it comes from. I have people who I am responsible for,
yeah.
and I'm going to take responsibility for that. And that means I'm going to be reading the books, listening to the podcast, getting the coaches, getting the consultants. One of my favorite business, like small business owners that I work with, I actually give him a huge amount of credit for getting me into this field. Every year takes on a new coach, a new consultant, because he always wants to grow and succeed and grow and succeed and grow and
Yeah.
succeed. He's he's never um, He's never complacent. He's content, but not complacent. Loves his
Yeah.
life, loves what he has going for him, but he knows that there's always another more, and he's willing to do that. So I find the fear focused and the pride focused, there's a real challenge. But those growth success focused people, they just want growth and success.
And they're great to work with as well. So, talking about that, it's, for me, relationships have always been a really core foundation of business. And, it's not just the cold-heartedness of everything. And I'd love to know what's one thing that you've changed in how you build relationships that has made growing your business and selling and all of that just a lot easier in that process.
The background of all of the years I had in ministry and churches and that environment does help a lot because
Mm,
um, that role of caregiver, that role of person who is committed to the individual I'm standing in front of, that doesn't just go away. And so I know it's very easy sometimes to get so focused on the goal, to get so focused on the metrics and the numbers and the next step. But one of the most important things that I learned many years ago and I've implemented multiple times, especially now, is everybody does what they do, even when they claim it's logic. That logic is purely the clothing we put on top of our emotions so we don't feel naked.
mm,
That's the reason why, here in America, there's these defined, polarized political parties and views, right? But within that context, that's it's because they're trying to solve an emotional issue. There's a feeling of
mm.
chaos. There's a feeling of loss. And when you can recognize that it is that the logic is the clothing they put on top of the emotions so they don't feel naked, it allows you to address the core issue. How do we deal with the emotional issue? They're afraid of this. There's chaos here. There's loss and grief
Yeah.
over here. And I think being able to recognize that because of the time spent in church world, so to speak, is really beneficial. That everybody's doing what they're
Mm,
doing to solve and soothe an emotional weight. And I think that's
yeah.
such a massive component of it. Even when you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do. It's there. It's the emotional weight of, am I gonna lose all of this? Am I stuck with this? Is this what it's going to be? Is everyone going to find out I'm a fraud? Right? All of the imposter syndrome that goes along with it. Um, so recognizing the emotional weight behind the logical decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, great answer to that. Really, really good. Um, Here's another thing that I always love to ask Brian. Is we all go through challenges in business. It's just a normal thing, and oftentimes, um, being a business owner can be lonely. So we think, God, am I the only one going through this stuff? So, what's the number one most challenging thing that you've been through in business, and what's the lesson that you learned from that?
Um, I would say it's a combination of, one of them's referred to the imposter syndrome issue, right? Actually, when I first started the company, I was meeting with a good friend of mine, CPA that I meet with regularly, and he looks at me. We went out to breakfast, and I told him what I was going to do, and he looks me just square in the eye and goes, "Brian, that's a horrible idea. Why would anybody listen to you when they could come talk to me?"
Wow.
Now, we were friends. It doesn't sound like it, I know, but we were. And I went, people like me. Uh, like that's the difference. But so we're talking about that. And so, but there is that imposter syndrome. Like I know that I know what I'm talking about, but it's not like I can sit there and say, oh, here's this, $5 million company that I launched. What I can sit
Mm,
there and say is, uh, every employee I've ever had has been underpaid. The vast majority of my employees are completely volunteer. So you have to do what you do without any financial weight on them. You have to do what you do without any true positional authority. It's pure relational authority to be able to set vision, set direction. Like that's a different
mm,
component, but it still gives you a bit of an imposter syndrome. And when you mix that with that, the invisible man theory, the idea that we all think we're so important, but most people don't even recognize we're there, right?
yeah.
Every business owner I talk to, when you ask them at the beginning, like, what makes you special? What's your market dominating position? What is it that's unique? And they all go, well, it's the way that I care for people, or it's the kind of service we provide. It's the white glove. And I'm like, I don't say this directly to them in that moment most of the time, but it's like, no one knows you exist, right? Like
Mm, yeah.
you you know that you're special, no one else knows or cares. And so when you start to mix those two together, a bit of an imposter syndrome, and you think kind of everybody's looking at you, but in reality, nobody sees you,
Yeah.
that's a real mental challenge to work through. Um, Once you come to grips with both of those, life becomes so much simpler
Mm,
because I'm not trying to compete for anybody's attention. I'm not competing against other people who are in the same realm as I am because what I do and what they do aren't the same thing. Um,
mm,
and you can truly begin to carry yourself with an understanding that I'm important, but I'm not the most important. I'm not always the main character of my story. So I have found
yeah.
that to be that big challenge of dealing with the imposter syndrome, with thinking that everybody is seeing that and then nobody's seeing it at the
Mm.
same time. Um, Being able to work through those components, I think mentally has been the biggest challenge. Structurally and organizationally, not such a big deal, but mentally a real challenge because you've got to
Yeah.
believe in yourself first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, just great answer. And I think it's a very rare person that hasn't been through that. And as we continue to level up in businesses, I think we uncover new levels of imposter syndrome as well. At least that's what I've found.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, looking over the next 2 to 3 years of growth and what you're wanting to achieve, what are your goals? What would you like to do with the business?
We've been able to pretty consistently double it year over year. I've kind of set a goal right now of being able to see if we can triple it this year, bringing on other strategists uh, to repeat the model that we have because we've got it mapped out. So being able to bring on some other strategists, um, we've been able to launch into uh, peer-to-peer groups now as well. We do the one-on-one strategy work, but being able to launch into the peer-to-peer groups as well. And then the other sort of big push we've been getting out there is refer to it as strategic stillness. It's that work life. People talk about work life balance, but it's balance. There's almost that thought like they're even, but they're not even, right? The only way to get balance is you got to be somewhere to the wrong side to kind of
Mm,
offset the weight. And a person I'm going to be meeting with here in a couple hours, he's working around 90 to 93 hours a week right now. Um, And when we talk about the work that someone does, right, you've got the work that's going to get you $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, but there's $100,000 work too. And that is the work that's going to lose your family, because you lose that family, you lose way more than $100,000. So making sure that business owners get their priorities in the right place, so they're doing the $100,000 work at the right time as well. And so the big thing is to continue to develop those, take a lot of the work that I'm doing now that's been structured, put that into the hands of other strategists, to continue with my business partner to move the peer-to-peer groups out while we launch and promote more of the strategic stillness mindset, and being able to help business owners learn just how to control their time better for the value of that $100,000 work.
Amazing. Love that. Love that. Look, great goals, man. Great goals. Well, Brian, for anyone that's looking to get in touch with you or find out more about you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Best place is, all of the socials, and specifically gadalstrategies.com. It's Gadal. It's an old Hebrew word that means to take something that is good and help it grow up into something that's excellent. And so Gadal strategies.com, but that's also our handle on all of the other things. If you just look for quick little tips, advice, we put those up on LinkedIn pretty consistently through video, and we TikTok and Instagram and all of the other places. But gadalstrategies.com, probably the best place to start.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I definitely recommend everyone checking that out for sure. So, Brian, thanks so much for being on the show, man. Some really great advice, and very unique, helpful angles that you've come at from these questions as well. So thank you for that. It's been a great privilege having you on the show. And as a reminder for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn, have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn on LinkedIn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.